clap, sync up the audio. Normally we have like a little clicker.
Yeah.
But this is it. All right, man. Michael Roth. So, dude, thanks again for doing this. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day and sitting down with us. Dude, you recently transitioned. I want to start with kind of where you are today, right? Because I mean, you played baseball for so long, and I'm sure you try to talk about that with quite a bit of people if they're like asking you stuff. It's oh, dude, so what was that like? So we'll get to there, but dude, you're in a whole new space right now, right? Like, we're talking about a little bit off the recording, and you're in real estate now. What's that? What?
Yeah, 2019 was a huge transition year for me. I went from, this was my first full year in a real job, like we're talking about.
Yeah.
And, so now I'm doing commercial real estate, and really it's like there's so much into that, but I just basically tell people this office building that we're sitting in or that you operate a business out of, I sell and lease those.
Yeah.
And, there's various aspects into the business that I want to get into.
Yeah.
But it's been a learning year. I mean.
Yeah, I imagine that learning curve is pretty big.
And it was a fun year. I've learned a lot. And this time of year, it's always, when you're around the holidays, I always kind of like look back on what went well this year and what do I want to do next year.
Yeah.
So it's been a good time to kind of go through what I've done in real estate and what went well and what do I need to do to improve.
Yeah. Is that a common practice for you, looking back over the year and assessing that?
Yeah, I did that in my baseball career.
Yeah.
And, I used to not make it such a formal practice where I would write things down. I would just kind of go to a coffee shop and think about it. And now I like physically write things down.
That's the difference, right?
It's beyond,
it makes it real.
Difference.
Yeah.
It does. And you can go back and see, like I could go back and look at my notes from last year and be like, okay, what did I say I wanted to be at this time this year?
Yep.
Where did I hit? Okay, yeah, I'm like halfway there on there.
Yeah.
I hit that one. Man, I completely forgot about this goal.
Right. It's easy to forget.
It is. And if it's not in front of you, and so it's things like that where, I can go back and look at what I did well, look at what changed in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, because our lives are always changing.
Always.
And
it's the only constant.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. And in real estate, we say every 3 months you need to reach out to someone because something may change. You know, they may not want to sell their building now, but in 3 months they might.
Always be following up.
And so, for me, it's something that I wanted to do may have changed in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
And I like to go back and look at it and also see what can I do better next year.
Right. Yeah. And writing down is definitely the move. For the longest time, I would go without like writing my goals down, kind of like you. Like it's just you're always thinking about them, and when you are in athletics, the goal's pretty fucking clear. You know what I mean? Like this is the goal, and it's always on your mind.
Mm-hmm.
But once you start getting into like the business world or real life or whatever you want to say, you know what I mean? It's good to have to take that time to write it down, like make it real.
And remind yourself of it, too.
The reminders are so huge. Do you have a vision board?
I don't, and that's something I've been looking into is actually. And so there's one guy that I've Ryan Holiday. I don't know if you know.
Yeah,
so
dude, great. Well, he's written like 3 books, 4 books.
Yeah, he's written a ton of books, but 3 of them are on like stoicism.
Yeah,
and
his
the
obstacle
last
is the way.
Yeah, obstacle is the way. I think the last one that he came out with was stillness is the key or something.
Is that his newest one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And he's big on like having the book, having like your notebook that you're gonna write in, or your goals like immediately in front of you, so that way you have to like move it in order to see it and then start your day.
Oh yeah. So if you're getting your book, page 1, boom, there's your goals. Go through, and now you're on the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really helps to have those visual reminders.
Yeah.
I found it's crazy. So probably, I guess maybe a little over a year ago now, I got off of Amazon. I just got these vision boards. So like half of it's a whiteboard, the other half is a cork board.
Okay.
So I got 3 of those, one for me and 2 for my kid, or 1 for each of my kids. I have 2 kids.
Yeah.
And I made them sit down with me and do a vision board. And it's just so crazy. Like once you put something on that board and you start working towards it, to like check it off. It feels so good to do that. So we did that with the podcast we started, And I put 3 names on the list. I mean, I had a whole list of people I want to sit down with. But I put 3 names on the list specific for like St. Louis, which is where I live. And I wanted to get like the 3 biggest people in the city that I could think of at the time. And I got 2 out of the 3. And one of them was, we just recently sat down with, I don't know if you're familiar with him. His name's Andy Frisella.
Andy Frisella.
Yeah, no worries. He's a pretty big entrepreneur and has a few different companies, or I think he has like 7 or 8 companies.
Wow.
But huge following, like
That's the goal.
1.5 million followers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, dude, just #1 business podcast on the earth. It's called the MFCEO Project. And just a huge guy in the space. So, like, I put him as, like, #1 on the vision boards. Like, this is who I want to sit down with, like, I gave myself, like, 12 months.
Right.
And we did it, and it's like, man, like, it's so surreal to, like, put some shit down, and then you check it off the list.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why you do it.
Yeah.
Too. You know, that's what you put it down so you can follow through. Because if it's not in front of you, it's easy to fool yourself, right?
Right.
It's easy to, you know, in my role now, if I don't track like who I'm calling or the number of calls that I make or like the deals that I'm pursuing, then it's easy for me to like lie to myself and be like, oh, I'm so busy. Am I really that busy?
Right.
You know, do I have, because we all like to say, oh man, life's so good. I'm so busy right now. Things are crazy. But if you really like look at it, we do a lot of busy work.
Yeah.
But are we doing quality work?
Yeah. Is it like, are you being effective?
Right.
Are you working efficiently? Like, busy is a badge of honor.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. Exactly.
It's like, hey man, how you doing? Oh man, I'm so busy. Busy doing what, bro? Like, what are you doing? Like, you just going eating Twinkies or something? Like,
busy staring at the emails, you know, and like responding to emails that are nothing.
Yeah, all busy work, and man, yeah, so many people just get wrapped up in things that like don't actually take you a step forward.
Right.
They're just running in circles.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I realized for me going into this year. Was one of the reasons I got into commercial real estate is I really it's very entrepreneurial.
Right.
I kind of work for myself. No, I don't have anyone that dictates my time.
Yeah.
So the freedom is something that I love.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I'm excited about that. When I look back on that from like, you know, in 2019, the freedom that I had, I loved it. But I'm also like, man, I had no structure, so I was able to create bad habits.
Yeah.
And so now I realize, okay, I have to create the same structure that I created when I was playing baseball.
Right.
I have to put some new structures in place in my life in order to be more effective and more efficient.
Yeah. Dude, structure is key. You know, like having that discipline and like having those routines.
Right.
It feels good to not have those. And like when you come from such a structured background like you are in baseball, or, you know, I mean, I did sports for a really long time and I fought at a high level. Like your whole life is pretty structured. It's like I got practice and more practice and then games. And it's like everything is very singular focused. But when you're in the entrepreneur space and you're out there just trying to build some shit, like there is no blueprint. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you can follow some other people's business plans and some things that they've done. But at the end of the day, like we're all just out here trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And the blueprint's the only one that you can create. Right. And the vision that you see, and then you go create your blueprint from there. And you may have the wrong path.
Yeah.
But you're going to figure it out as you move along. You'll be like, okay, I need to pivot and do this.
Yeah, that's so important, like to be able to pivot.
Yeah.
I'm very guilty of setting my mind to something. Like, no, that's like this is what I'm going to do. And that's good too. Like the goal doesn't have to change, just the way you get there.
Right.
Like that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to sometimes like get out of your way and make those changes.
Yeah.
So what are some of the big things that you're really looking to do in this space, man? I mean, you chose commercial real estate, which I mean, you could have went residential, but you're going for the big dogs.
Yeah. You know, it's funny when I got into commercial real estate, everyone's like, "Oh, why'd you pick commercial and not residential? You know, you'd kill it." Everyone always says like, "Oh, you'll do great. You'll do great."
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I thought initially I was getting into commercial because I'm like, it's more business. Like, you know, people don't make decisions emotionally like they do buying a home. Because I know when I bought my home, well, we bought our home online because I didn't even see it.
Really?
I was out in Texas.
Oh,
like
shit.
We just put it under contract.
You're a brave man.
I know, yeah. And there's some things that I regret about that, but it's okay.
It's learning.
Yeah, exactly.
You learned.
Live and learn. But we were just like, oh, it's pretty. You know, it looks nice. It has an open floor plan.
Yep.
You know, we didn't make it it wasn't like, oh, this is going to be a great investment.
Yeah.
You know, we bought it for like safety, security, and my wife was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, we'll buy it. You know, that was an emotional decision.
Yeah.
Well, I thought getting into commercial real estate, there would be less of that.
It's the same, huh?
And it's the same. I mean, we all make, as individuals, we make decisions emotionally.
Yeah.
Right?
All
so
emotion. All decisions, rather.
Yeah. Everything that we do is all based off our emotions. We just try to justify it with something after the fact.
Usually after the fact.
After the fact, you're like, oh, yeah, I'm doing this because it makes sense, X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
You probably, if you peel the onion back, you know, you peel those layers, you made it because you wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And then now you're justifying it with those numbers.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And that's what I thought. I thought it would be less of that, but now I'm more realizing that it's everything we do is based off of emotions.
Yeah, it really is.
So all that to say, commercial real estate's been great. I got into it because when I was playing in 2016, you know, as a starting pitcher, we don't get to play every day. Right. A lot of our work is done before the lights come on. Mm-hmm. And then once the lights come on, we're kind of just hanging out.
Yeah.
And in 2016, I was in Round Rock, Texas, and I was a starting pitcher. And so the richest guy on the field was our volunteer first base coach.
Oh, really?
And so we would sit there, you know, during the games, and he would tell me about the business that he was in. He would tell me the deals that he was doing, like investing in. I'm like, man, I need access to
how
this.
can I get into
this?
Yeah,
like I need this shit, you know? And so this was probably in July. I started making some phone calls because I knew I was coming back here to Greenville in the off season. And so I was like, man, I need to get access to deals. I don't know anything about real estate. I mean, I had a business background and going to school and graduated with international business, but I didn't know anything about real estate. The only real estate my parents ever bought was their house.
Okay.
So I didn't know anything about it, and I just wanted access to it. So I just started making phone calls and got hooked up with the firm that I'm with now, actually, NAI Earl Furman, and just kind of started as an intern.
Okay.
Because I just wanted to learn.
You really had to humble yourself for that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, they were like, do you want to get paid? And I was like, no, I don't care about that. I just want to learn.
Yeah.
Like, just, you know, if I put a deal together.
Great.
That's what I want to get paid for. But
right.
You don't need to pay me on a salary.
Just to be there. Yeah.
So that's how I got into it. Was just I was playing ball and I was like, man, these driving by all these things that were being built, and I'm like, how are they making money doing this?
Yeah, I'm always so fascinated by just the big development that happens in certain cities. It's like, man, like I can just the conversations and the handshakes that are happening behind closed doors, and man, like when you see a developer come in and just like completely change an area.
Yeah.
Like, damn, dude, like that's some really cool shit to see.
I mean, that's Greenville too. Like this town, when I grew up, you didn't really venture past the Westin Poinsett Hotel, which is a little bit, you know, we're here up near North Main.
Okay.
And so if you go further down, which they call the West End. Okay. There's the Westin Poinsett Hotel. You didn't really go past that. And then in 2005, they built the baseball stadium down here. Okay. And then people started there started to be all this development that connected the baseball stadium up here towards Main Street. And it completely changed this town. Yeah. I mean, people started actually going downtown, all this restaurants.
Just revitalizes the whole area.
Yeah, it completely changed Greenville, and it's why people love to live here.
Yeah, so that's what you're about to get into, huh? About to start changing the face of the city.
I'm going to try.
Was that a hard transition to, leave this life that you've known forever? You know what I mean? Athletics and make that. You know, obviously we kind of said a little bit, but you know, you're ready, right? But I found, at least for me a little bit, and then just a lot of athletes, like your whole identity is wrapped up in what you do. You know what I mean? And that's something I really had to like break. Like the things I do aren't who I am. Yeah. So when people ask me like, what do you do? Or like, they always want you to put like labels on different things. It's like, I have a hard time because I do so many different things. Right. Saying like, I'm this or I'm that. Yeah. Was that a hard thing to like, you identified as a professional, pitcher. Right. And you're a baseball player. And when did you start baseball?
So, I think I started playing when I was 3 years old. My mom actually lied on a YMCA T-ball form so I could start playing
Way
earlier.
To go, Mom.
I know. I got to give her a ton of credit. I had an older brother and older sister, like 11 years and 8 years older than me.
Okay.
So they were way older, and I think she was just sick of me not doing it. She was like,
it's time for you.
I had so much energy that she just wanted me to get the hell out of the house.
Are you the youngest of three?
Yeah, I'm the youngest.
Oh man, that's an interesting position to be in the family mix, especially with that big gap. I'm like so I have 2 younger brothers I grew up with, and one is like I think 6 or 7 years younger, and the other one's like 12 years younger than me.
Oh wow!
So my youngest brother's probably like in your boat in the family mix.
Yeah.
So it's probably a different life growing up because you're almost like an only child, I would imagine, a little bit.
Yeah, essentially. You know, from middle school on, I was so
right.
But it was a great life. I'm close to my brother and sister. They still live in Greenville. So
that's cool.
But yeah, so I started playing back, I've been playing baseball forever.
Yeah. So was that a hard transition then out of baseball? Like once you
to answer that question, I needed to like go back to what you said, where baseball was definitely part of my identity. You know, growing up, like I always wanted to be a professional baseball player. I knew it. There was, and I played multiple sports. I played basketball. I played soccer, but baseball was always like my first love.
Yeah.
And so, I would go and I was always like the baseball player. In high school, it was always something out every weekend, going to another tournament, and doing something. So I always had that label on me.
Yep.
And I fought pretty hard to not identify with baseball. But I think that's something that, especially we as males, have a tendency to do is to identify with our work.
Yeah, with like what we do. Like that's who we are.
Yeah. And when I got to college, you go from being, the best player on your team to now you're back kind of at the low man on the totem pole. You got to fight your way up.
Yeah.
And that first year was really hard to get to be, to feel satisfied because I was tied up in my identity being baseball.
Right.
And so I fought that pretty hard. And so all the way into when I started playing professionally, that was still a battle of mine, was like not identifying with the results of baseball.
Yeah.
And so, playing 7 years professionally, when I went into the 2018 season, I kind of knew that it was like a make or break it season for me. The minors lifestyle, I just didn't love.
Yeah.
It just wasn't, you're having a good time with some buddies, but you're constantly on the road. You're uprooting. I got married in 2016 in December, so she came with me. Once she did that, she quit her job here in Greenville and hit the road with me. It's like, well, if we're gonna be married, like
let's be together.
Let's do this thing, And so in 2018, I kind of knew it went into that year. I was coming off an injury, and I was like, this needs to be a big year. I'm probably gonna be done.
Yeah.
And I started out really well and just kind of fizzled near the end, and I just was burnt out.
Yeah.
Man. And so I thought I was ready. I thought I was like, man, I'll just be fine to hang it up. It'll be great.
Yeah.
And actually went down I went down to the Dominican Republic to play for 2 months just to make some you get
cash.
paid pretty cash. Yeah, you get paid in cash. And so I was like, maybe. And every time I've been down there, it like rekindled my love for baseball.
Okay.
Because
they have such an amazing baseball community down there, don't they?
Oh, it's like the purest sense of baseball ever. I mean, you're playing on fields that aren't like the nicest, and in stadiums that aren't the best, compared to the U.S.
Yeah.
But the players are having a blast. The fans are having a blast.
Yeah.
It's just a different style. It's like those fans treat it like American football here.
Yeah, that's cool to see.
And so it makes it like such a fun environment. So when I was down there, I just didn't feel that fire again. And I was like, man, I know this is it. Like, I know it's time for me to come back home. Like, if I would have rather have been at home with my wife and my dog versus being on the mound, I knew that it was time to hang it up.
When you're done, man. Like, you mentally have to be there. If you're not, then it's for nothing.
You can't push through the things that you have to do. Like, even when I was playing baseball and I loved it.
Yeah.
Even in high school, college, professionally, there's things that I didn't like to do, you know, but I knew I had to do them in order to be
right. You do it
in
anyway.
order to be good, in order to excel like I wanted to excel. I knew that I had to do them.
Yeah.
When you get to that point where you're just not, your heart's not in it.
Yeah.
You can't do those things.
No.
You can't push through those things.
Nope.
And so I thought, it was around this time when I announced that I was, everybody calls it retirement from baseball. I was like, I'm done. I guess I'm
stopping,
quitting. Yeah, I'm not playing anymore.
You retired.
Yeah, and I didn't like calling it retirement.
That's a weird word, huh?
Yeah, and it's not like I'm like riding off into the sunset. Baseball didn't make me enough money where I can just sit back. Yeah. Nor am I the type of person that, even if it did pay me, $100 million, that I would sit on a beach somewhere and do nothing.
I will never retire.
Yeah, no.
It's such a weird word. It's because retirement implies you're just stopping. I feel like what is is that just where you wait to die? Is that what retirement?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And that I don't want to wait to die.
No. Like I'm still doing shit.
I'm waiting to die now. It's just, but I'm gonna be doing stuff while I can.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, I thought I was really prepared, and it was a lot harder to say, hey, I'm done and I'm finished.
Yeah.
But as hard as it was to really say, hey, I'm done, I haven't missed playing.
Yeah.
To be honest with you,
that probably surprises a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think it's just going from one thing that to something that I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I went from a life of playing baseball that I've done. I made money for doing it for 7 years, and so I went from that to now I'm in a completely new career. 1 year was good, but
yeah. Well, you're back at the beginning.
Yeah, you kind of restart. So it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's all this unknown, and so but I didn't miss playing. I didn't miss playing. I actually went. It's funny. So I'm a British citizen as well.
Yeah, I saw you play for their team.
Yeah, so I went over to Germany and played for Team Great Britain in September. For the we were trying to qualify for the Olympics.
Okay.
And we just didn't have a great tournament. We had a lot of fun, but we just weren't very good.
Yeah.
And so we went over there and I played, and still I had fun playing because I was with some guys that I'd played with before, but I still wasn't fired up. It didn't make me.
You could feel the difference.
Man, I want to go play again.
Yeah.
I had so many people say, "Oh, did it make you want to go out there and try it again?"
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm good. I just want to go back home.
Just ready to go home and chill with my dogs and
this was a fun week and a half, but I'm good. So
I totally understand that. I stopped fighting, I guess 2.5 years ago now.
Yeah.
And man, I had probably one of the best years of my life, and I was about to get signed by a pretty big organization, and then I blew out my shoulder, had to get surgery on my rotator cuff and labrum, and that was it was another year until I fought again.
Yeah.
So whenever I fought, I was physically better than I ever was, and I felt like mentally I was there, but then when I got into the cage, I didn't want it. I was just like, I don't even want to be here. This isn't fun. I don't enjoy this. And then I was like, all right, well, whatever. And then I lost that fight, and I took another one. Same thing. I was physically, weight cut was easier than ever was. I fought at 170 pounds.
Okay.
I usually walk around about 190. So I cut 20 pounds. So weight cut was really easy. I felt great. I was in fantastic shape. But then I got in the fight, and I was winning both my two last fights. I lost them both, but I was winning the fights up until I lost.
Right.
And it was just a situation, man, if your heart isn't into it and your mind isn't into it, when you start going through the shit, when you go through the difficult times, whether that's, you're probably late in a game and you need to pitch perfectly, or, I need to get out of the submission. When those hard times hit, you won't make it through it if you don't really want it.
Right.
And then that's when it's time to hang it up.
Yeah.
And then for me, and tell me if you're like this, but it came to a point where I feel like if I do what I'm supposed to do, A plus B equals C, so then I expect to win. And then if I win, it doesn't give me the same bump. I don't get the same high from winning that I used to.
Yeah.
And then if I lose, I just hate my fucking life.
Yeah, I get it, man.
Dude, it's crazy. Some people don't understand that, but winning is great, but it's not everything.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it just doesn't get you the same high. But there's no high like winning, though.
Oh, man, that's what was so hard sometimes is, everybody in sports, they're focus on the process, don't worry about the results, and I get that. But obviously we're always judged on our results.
We want the result.
Right. And that's what you're shooting for.
Right.
Now I know that in order to be successful, you can't only look at wins and losses, right?
Yeah.
Over a period of time. But for me, when I was playing, at least the last couple of years, it got to the point where if I won, I was like, oh, great. I'm like, I should have won.
Yeah, I should have.
And if I didn't, I'm like, this shit sucks.
Dude,
I'm going to quit.
I'm gonna think about this for months.
Yeah. Yeah. And now, like, what's funny is baseball pitchers, starting pitchers are always like, man, our job sucks because we throw one day and have to wait 5 more days. I mean, you guys have to wait months,
dude.
And you're just sitting on that.
Man, it's like you train for 2-3 months, and then you get a fight, and it's like, all right, cool, I want to do that again next week. And it's like, no, dude, you gotta wait some time, bro. And it's like, man, if you're lucky, you fight 4, maybe 5 times a year. Sometimes I'd cut weight. One time I cut weight, I weighed in, talking shit, and then didn't come to the fight the next day. This was as an amateur, though, and I'm just like, come on, man. I just went through all this shit. I just drove here. I just weighed in. Dude, the waiting sucks.
Yeah.
The waiting sucks, man. But so we're going to stick with baseball.
Okay.
Take me back to the beginning. So you started when you were 3.
Yeah.
You played – were there any like early mentors like throughout your career that like really kind of molded how you look at things?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first I would say my parents.
Okay.
I mean, they were always super supportive of anything that I wanted to do, and especially sports related.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think it's from my mom's background when she was younger. Like, her parents never really like supported her in sports.
Okay.
But and I always make fun of her, but she did like synchronized swimming and field hockey.
Dope.
So she was the British.
She's probably a savage, dude. Girls are mean, and I've seen some field hockey games. They fuck each other up with those sticks, bro.
I'm sure. I believe it. My mom's a cold Brit, so but no, she was awesome, man. So my dad's from New York, so they're Northerners, but I was born and raised here in Greenville.
That's an interesting
mix. Yeah, I know. And so my dad played baseball growing up.
Okay.
My mom played some sports when she was older, and so they were always supportive of anything we did. When I was younger, my sister was playing travel basketball, like AAU basketball, and and I started playing baseball. And so my parents would kind of split. My dad would go with me, and then my mom would go with my sister. And when my sister went on to college, it was kind of like it was just my mom and dad and I.
Yeah, all eyes on you.
And yeah, exactly. But they, my dad was the dad where if I wanted to like hit wiffle balls in the backyard, he would come home after work and
nice.
We'd go and like smash wiffle balls until it was dark, and even then we'd like jump and turn the floodlight on.
That's cool.
So without them really helping me and also pushing me too, like my dad would say, listen, if you want to be good, like, you need to go put in the work. You need to go up to the facility and like hit some balls, or go hit balls on the tee in the cage. And so I think my dad had kind of instilled that like hard work in me.
Yeah.
And he still does. I mean, I'll never forget when I was in high school, like I was a pretty good student. I didn't have to study that much just because I was lucky enough to like, if I listened in class, I would retain the information.
Kind of come to you. Yeah.
And my dad would always be like, make sure you're studying, if you're not studying hard.
Yeah.
And so they expected all A's out of me. But he would always ask me, like, if I had studied for my tests. And I'm like, Dad, I got it. And so, but he did it in college too. Like, would constantly call me.
He's
always
like,
hey,
on you.
how's your test? Oh, you make sure you're working hard. And so that's something that he, like, drilled into me.
So you've been held accountable your whole life.
Yeah. I mean, and that's something that, and he was more, like, hands-on where he wanted to make sure I was doing it. And my mom would be like, just let him be. Like, if he screws it up, it's on him.
If he fails, he fails.
So
sink or swim, buddy.
Yeah, you had like two schools of thought there. So it was really helpful for both of them.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, I had some really good coaches along the way. One of my good coaches was and my dad actually never coached me once I got to like serious
he stepped
baseball.
Out of it.
Yeah, he kind of stepped back, and he was more like the coach in the background for me. He always coached me at my swing and throwing, but he never was on the field like yelling at me,
like
which was
overstepping.
good.
Yeah, that's so big, man. So many parents do that. You know what I mean? Like, I wrestled for a really long time, so that's actually what got me into fighting. And you see a lot of dads, like, they're trying to be the coach. It's like, no, man, like, you need to step back and let somebody else coach your kid.
And some of those, exactly. And because you can't separate can't separate from it emotionally. From some parents can't.
Yeah.
And if you can't, then you need to step back and let your kid, one, just go play. Like, also, when you're younger, they're not getting paid to do this.
Right.
Like, it's just fun. You're like,
right.
You're instilling, there's character values to learn from that, but let them go have fun.
Right.
Like, that's what it's supposed to be.
Right.
And then, but yeah, I had some really good coaches. Like, one was Bobby Bevel. He was a coach. He was actually the baseball coach at Anderson College, which is now Anderson University.
Okay.
And he coached me when I was younger. And then my high school coach was a really good coach on the field. He just wasn't necessarily the best person off the field.
Okay. He's good at his job.
Yeah, he knew baseball. And he kind of, he knew – I learned a lot from him baseball-wise. And then Coach Tanner at South Carolina was a really good coach for me.
Okay.
Like, I hated him sometimes.
Those are the best ones.
Yeah, I mean,
you're
like, that guy's an asshole.
Fight you right now, dude.
And we got into it sometimes, but I think it was just like I knew how competitive he was.
Yeah.
And he knew how competitive I was, but we respected the hell out of each other.
Right.
And that's what was important is I always knew what his goal was. His goal was to win and like to make us better men and better baseball players.
Yeah.
And so even if I thought he was an asshole at that time,
yeah,
it's still I knew that he meant well.
There's a purpose there.
And then in college I had for pitching, I would say I had two really good pitching coaches. My first 2 years I had Mark Calvey, and he was the coach that was like all about mentality.
Yeah.
He was a catcher, so he knew a lot about pitching and knew a ton of mechanics, but the big thing that he stressed was like when you're on the mound, you're the fucking guy. Like it's your ball, like you do what you want. Like, throw the pitch with conviction, because if you doubt yourself at all,
yeah,
you're not going to be. It's not going to be the right pitch.
Yeah,
you're going to throw it without the conviction to get that by.
There'll be some sort of hesitation there.
Yeah.
If you hesitate, I always say if you hesitate, you die.
Yeah, and that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's the exact same thing with baseball. And then he left, and then my last 2 years I had Jerry Myers, and he was like. He pitched, and so he's like focused on all the mechanics, and he really helped me fine tune my mechanics to help me make some big jumps as a pitcher. And so I'd say along my life there was always someone there that was really pouring into me, and I don't think they did it just to like pour into me. I think they were just good coaches, and they were trying to pour into their players. And if you're a player and you recognize that and you grab a hold of it, then that's when you can make the jumps that you want to make.
Right.
If you have a coach that's willing to pour the time and effort into you, and you're willing to receive it.
Yeah, and you got to put in the work.
Yeah,
100%, man. I had a high school coach, and he would say that, listen, if I'm talking to you and I'm on you, like that's a good thing. The moment I quit talking to you, like that's the problem.
Yeah. Yep. My freshman year, I'll never forget, me and my roommate Adam Matthews, we'd come home after every practice and be like, so what did Coach Tanner, yell at you today for? Because we got yelled at every day.
It's like, hey, Coach, I'm balling, right? Like,
yeah,
I'm good.
Yeah, and we're like, gosh, why is it like he's constantly on us? And we're like, why is he not on this guy? Why is he not on this guy? And we're like, when I was there, it pissed me off.
It doesn't make sense.
And now that I look back on it, I know, like, Coach Tanner, knew how to push certain guys. Like, certain guys that he had to push. And good leaders, here's the thing. Good leaders recognize that you can't motivate and you can't treat everyone the same.
Right.
Because not everyone responds to the same stimuli.
We're all different.
And so there would be a couple of us that would just get like cussed out every day, or like just he's constantly on us. And we're like, damn, what are we doing?
Roth, you no good son of a bitch.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Like,
what are you doing?
We're like, hey, do this, And we're like, gosh, we must suck, And we probably did, but it also made me better because I could handle that. I could handle that stuff, and I know he did it because he wanted us to make us better players.
Yeah, and you become a better man out of it. I mean, at the end of the day, life is fucking hard.
Yeah.
And people want to act like, especially, and you'll probably notice this or you probably already noticed it, like in the corporate world, and the more you talk, like everybody wants to frame everything in a very positive manner.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
everything's positive. You can't say anything negative.
Right.
And like I'm even guilty of like, how can I frame this in the most positive way? And you try to like sugarcoat things, but at the end of the day, life is fucking hard.
Yeah.
And you're gonna take losses, and it's not gonna be easy, and not everything is positive, and you just gotta work through it, man. And it's good to have somebody kind of on your ass, helping you deal with the hard shit.
And I think that's important, like in all of life.
Yeah.
Right? Like you've got to have someone that's willing to push you.
Yeah.
And that could be, for me, like when I was looking at this past year and what I've done, because commercial real estate, all it is sales. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just another sales job.
It's
And so
relationships.
I look back and I'm like, all right, what did I do? Did I have the right behaviors? I was like, I need to learn some basic things, because I was like, I'm not as good at sales as I thought I was.
Yeah.
So I hired a sales coach,
Oh, nice.
And it's like, now I have somebody that's, holding me accountable. It doesn't necessarily mean, he's not there to motivate me. He's not sending me a text message like, go get him today, Michael.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that inherent motivation, then there's something wrong.
Right.
But it's more of, like, if I get stuck with something, or, hey, here's the behaviors that I'm doing, I go back to him and he's like, hey, that's a good framework. How about you try this? Or how about you try this?
Yeah.
And I think we could have that in all of our lives. For me, sometimes if I'm not like constantly pursuing my wife, then it could just be she turns into my roommate, and that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not a good marriage.
You got to put in work and everything.
And so and sometimes it could be a friend, like just a buddy who you get coffee with. And that's kind of what I do. I've got a buddy. I'm like, hey man, how's life? Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real. I know we're men and we're like, oh, things great, man.
Yeah, bro,
great.
I'm good.
Just lifted. Everything's okay. But it's like, no, man. Life's kind of hard. Like,
life's hard, dude. Like,
family's dealing with this, and my family's got this, and like, let's share those things and be honest.
Yeah, like have those open dialogues.
Yeah.
Like, that's so important, man. And like just to have those people that you can have those honest conversations with, and to have those people that will hold you accountable, like that just goes so far in life. I'm such a big proponent of constantly like taking audit of like the energy that you allow around you and in your space.
Yeah.
So I'm just so huge on, just having the right people around me and associating with the right people, because like that's what's going to lead to your ultimate success.
Yeah.
And I think coaches are very undervalued for the majority of the population. I mean, for guys like you and I, where we've always had a coach in our life,
right,
it's easy to see how that translates into success.
Yeah.
Right. But so many people just ignore it. And from my perspective of, I do a lot of health coaching and, some movement training.
Right.
And that's always the first thing people put on the back burner for whether it's business or family. Like they don't take care of themselves and their health, or, you'll teach somebody something and they're like, oh, I got it. I don't need a trainer anymore. It's like, dude, there's just so much you don't know. And even if you do know it, everybody needs a coach. Like your coach needs a coach.
Yeah.
So it helps to have those people in your life.
I couldn't agree more. When I was playing professionally, everybody would be like, what kind of workouts do you do? Like, what do you do? And I was like, I have a trainer. Like, I pay someone money to write a workout specific to me that I know is up on, he's read up on the most recent things going on with shoulder research and, the body and movement and power exercises. Like, I paid that guy money so that way he could coach me the best, so I could become the best baseball player and focus on the movements and not do that, because I just wasn't into that stuff.
Well, and there's so much information. Like, there's no way you could have possibly have learned it all.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, let me just pay somebody, because the return on that investment is so huge.
Yeah,
people see
massive.
that. Yeah, it's an investment, not an expense.
Yeah, exactly.
People don't understand that.
And you talk about like how people focus on their life and on their work, and this year that was something too. Like, I went from training pretty much every day from baseball, and I was like, man, I just need a break. So I didn't work out for like 3 months. And then this year I started getting back into it, but I was pretty lax. And so I'm not necessarily in my best shape, but like I got up this morning at 5:30 in the morning and went and worked out, because I know that having that discipline to get up early in the morning, it puts me in a better position to be effective at other areas of my life.
Yeah.
But also, like, I want to be healthy. Like, I don't want to be some fat slob.
Right.
Like, and I also know how it makes me feel. Like, it gives me a ton of energy.
Yeah.
And if I don't wake up and work out in the morning, then those other mornings, I'm kind of like, oh man, I'm just moving along my day and I don't have the same energy level.
Yeah.
And so I'm guilty of it too as a former athlete, having, didn't do anything for 3 months. And even this year I was pretty relaxed on pursuing working out. So you need, and even then I don't just go to the gym.
Yeah.
You got to have somebody that knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Tells you what they're doing.
Well, it's weird because whenever, you grow up in an athletic system and everything is surrounded around, training.
Right.
It's you kind of get this mindset, and you see it even with guys who aren't athletes. You start getting older, and you don't recover the same, and everybody wants to still train the same way. They're like,
right.
oh man, I got to go hit the barbell and I got to push, and more, but it's for longevity and health. You don't have to train the same way. You don't have to go hit the weights every day. Like, maybe just lift 3 days a week and go hike for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And maybe try some yoga or whatever you're into. Go play a pickup game or something.
Right.
Just stay active.
Yeah, make it fun.
Stay moving.
Well, we get used to, or at least now that I'm in this 9 to 5 role essentially, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You come home, have dinner, and then you can sit your ass on this couch and watch TV, Netflix and chill.
Yeah.
And that's a very, especially in the South, when I was in California, you would see a lot more active people.
Very active community out there.
And in the South, we're not as active. And I don't know why that is, I guess.
Yeah.
But I just always thought it was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back on this year and I'm like, man, I had way too many Netflix and chill nights,
Yeah. They add up. It's like, how'd that happen?
Yeah. You're like, what happened? But it's my wife and I just love messing around playing tennis. We're not any good at it, but we have a tennis court right around the corner.
Yeah.
So it's why don't we do that once or twice
Just
a week?
get out there and go do that.
And so literally a month or two ago, we went and bought rackets.
Oh, nice.
Started going and messing around. But it's things like that you can do just to stay active. And it can be a workout without really having to go to a gym.
Yeah, man. I mean, you don't have to beat yourself down. Most people feel like, oh man, if I didn't walk out of there and I'm not just completely drenched and I don't feel like I'm about to die, then I didn't get anything done.
Right.
But that's just gonna take away from everything else. Yeah. Right. Getting up in the morning like you do and getting some movement in, that sets the pace for the whole day, and then you feel good.
Yeah, and it's I think one of the things you talked about, we appreciate coaches, but I think more people are starting to appreciate coaches too, because and whether their pedigree's there or not, but you look at all of these, specifically in the health area, where you've got these boutique workout things popping up, like Orange Theory, or a 9-round,
yep,
or there's plenty, there's tons of them that are popping up, but they all have a coach, even CrossFit coach that designs a workout, and you go through it.
Yeah.
And that's, you're done with your workout. There's a lot less people going to a Gold's Gyms and a Planet Fitness to just do nothing, or walk on the treadmill. And I think that's, people are starting to appreciate some direction.
Yeah.
And if they start to realize that in other areas of their lives, it could be a very positive thing.
It very well could. It very well could. Do you have a morning routine?
I do. I'd say it's pretty loose. So for me, I wake up and I just immediately jump and go work out.
Okay.
So just get ready, and then I come home, throw the protein shake, get the coffee going.
Okay.
And then I'll sit down and kind of read some things in the morning.
Okay.
Kind of take 15, 20 minutes just to read, and that could be some spiritual stuff, or sometimes it's just straight a business newsletter that I get every morning.
Yeah, just something.
And that's kind of my decompress, and then I get ready and go to my day.
Okay.
And start the work. I try not to immediately sit down, right when I sit at the office. I don't want to turn my email on.
Yeah, that's a
trap. Because then you're just bombarded with
Yeah.
emails. And you can get sucked into just that busy work.
You're just there.
And so I'm actually going through right now and trying to figure out, how do I want to tweak my morning routine? Do I want to wake up earlier and go work out earlier?
Yeah.
And then have an hour of time to reflect and prep for the day, or what does that look like? because I also want, in my ideal world, I would sleep 4 hours, right? Like that, I would love that. If I could go to bed at like, Jocko Willink, right?
I do love Jocko, yeah.
So I feel like that guy never sleeps. Like he wakes up at like 4:30 or something.
Special human, that one.
Yeah, and I would love to go to bed at like midnight and wake up at 4.
Yeah.
But I just am not functional enough to do that.
How much sleep do you typically get?
About 7 hours.
Okay, that's legit, man.
Yeah, and that's pretty good. Like if I could shrink it, I would, but I can't operate on that.
Yeah, that's one area I found like you don't want to skip.
Yeah.
Because it's going to affect everything else. Like sleep and recovery is the foundation of health, even outside of nutrition, even outside of movement. Because you can be eating well and you can still be like getting the training in, but if you don't recover, then it's all for nothing.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. And it changes your mood, right? Like if you have a bad night of sleep, or if you slept like crap, there's sometimes in those days where you're just irritable.
Yeah,
like,
it's tough.
And I woke up the other day at 4 a.m. and I was like wide-eyed, took my dog out because I just like got up. I don't even know what caused it.
Yeah.
And I tried to lay back down. I laid there for 30 minutes, and I was like, screw this. I'm going to get up and go do something.
Yeah.
Now that day I wasn't like, didn't get, irritable. I think it's just I was up and moving.
Yeah.
But there's other times where like I'm tossing and turning all night, and I wake up at 5 and I'm like,
it's rough, man.
I'm like, what the hell,
Yeah.
And that whole day is a terrible day, because I respond.
Mike, you need a Snickers, Mike. You're not yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I just like respond like an asshole to my wife or to anybody, and I'm like, man, you gotta have sleep.
It's so important. I get so irritable if I don't have sleep. Yeah, it's tough. I don't think I had a best night's sleep the other day, and I was talking to my girlfriend, and she said something. I'm like, Deja, like, this, like, listen to my words, not my tone. Just listen to the words. Like, this is what I'm saying. I understand I'm a little grumpy right now. Just listen to what I'm saying.
Yeah. If only we could all do that, right?
It's tough. It's tough. It was also kind of a joke. I don't know. There's a comedian. I just found him. His name's, I think, Richard Chong or Chang or something. He has a new Netflix special, and I just saw it. And it was probably one of the funniest fucking specials I've seen in a long time. And he's from China, and he made that joke. He's like, my wife says I have tone issues. he's like, listen to my words, not what I say. He's like, I really love spending all this money on 3 weddings. It was great. Because he has a very like traditional family, so like they had like a wedding, and I think his wife is from Australia, so he had like a wedding in Australia, and then one in New York, and then one in like Hong Kong or something. So he had all for the same person. He's
gosh.
like, I love it so much, like it was so great. I'm so he's like, listen to my words. So like that's how I am. So anytime I start saying some shit, I'm like, Deja, listen to my words, not my tone. I'm so monotone.
I'm gonna have to listen. I'm gonna have to.
Dude,
I'm gonna have to go check that out.
It was pretty funny. I'm like, I don't know who this guy is, but he's my new favorite comic.
Yeah,
dude,
funny.
It's good stuff. So are you like, how do you like to learn, dude? Like, are you a reader? You like listen to podcasts, or like what do you? I know you mentioned Jocko.
Yeah.
Like, who are some people you like to?
I read and I learn by like podcasting. I listen to books too sometimes.
Yeah, I do a lot of audiobooks.
Yeah, audiobooks are good. I definitely love reading. And sometimes it's just like studying stuff, like digging in and just like getting on a subject. And I'm like, I just need to figure out what is going on here.
Dive in there.
I've got like 3 books on rotation right now. And this is not typical of me, but like I'm audiobooking Grit.
Okay.
By Angela Duckworth. Mm-hmm. And another book I'm reading is How to Be a Futurist, I think.
I'm not familiar with that one.
I'm trying to think. I don't know who wrote that. I saw it on our CEO's desk.
Okay.
And I was like, is this a good book? And he's like, oh, it's phenomenal. I was like, well, let me grab it. I'll bring it back in a month.
Yeah.
And the other book I'm reading is Sapiens.
Yeah, great book.
Yeah. And so.
What is his name? Something Havari?
I
listened to that one, though. I didn't actually read it.
But I try not to read like thought-provoking books before I go to bed, or otherwise I would never sleep.
Yeah.
But I like to get in bed and read for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then go to sleep. But
okay.
I can't read thought-provoking books. Like the Futurist one or like Grit would make me think of business things.
Yep.
Or like things that I could do or to be better at whatever. And if I do that, then I'll never go to sleep, or it'll take me another hour and a half to go to sleep.
Yeah.
So I try to read like Sapiens to me isn't that thought provoking. It's more of like a history, which is interesting, or just like a fiction book. Before
They
bed.
say fiction's best before bed.
Yeah.
Because it, to your point, it's not that analytical part of your mind.
Right.
I have a hard time reading fiction. I prefer nonfiction.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't do the reading before bed. I like to read in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found a solid morning routine is like the best way to get going. And if I don't do that, then I kind of feel behind on the day.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I did this this program called 75 Hard.
Okay.
And it's by that same guy, Andy Frisella, and it's 75 days straight, and you read 10 pages a day of like a self-development book. You drink a gallon of water. You do 2 workouts a day. They're both 45 minutes, and one of them has to be outside.
Okay.
You follow a diet, whatever diet you want, but there's no cheat meals and there's no alcohol, and then you take a progress pick every day. And you do that for 75 days straight. If you don't do any of those things on any of those days, then you fail that day, and you go back to day 1.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, so I did that, and it just really put together like a solid morning routine for myself.
Right.
And a part of that was like getting those 10 pages in, and then just that routine and structure, like having that discipline.
Yeah.
It helps so much.
Yeah.
Because motivation is fleek. Like it'll go away.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
You gotta have those disciplines.
Yeah, you gotta put some structure into your life. Like just like I was saying earlier, for me it's self-imposed structure. Like I like that because I think that's helpful for me. Like other people, my wife, when she was looking for a job when we came back to Greenville, she wanted a job with structure. She doesn't like self-imposed structure.
I like it.
And I like it. Yeah, exactly. Like I know that I need that.
Yeah.
And so, and reading in the morning, I would love to. I think I would have to wake up earlier to do it.
Probably.
But, I feel like I do my best thinking in the morning.
Yeah.
And so
that's how I am. Like I'm like a battery. Like I wake up, I'm full on charge, and probably by 6 o'clock, I'm done. It's like don't even talk. My brain doesn't work anymore. It's tough. We've done some podcasts before in the evening. I'm just like, all right, we're gonna get through this. We're gonna get through this, but I'm not my best right now.
Yeah, I hear you. That makes sense.
It happens. Do you journal or anything? You talked about that a little bit.
Journaling is something that I've always wanted to do, and I've never really got into it on a progressive habit.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I really go through and I do. I more journal like the end of year plans and New Year plans.
Yeah.
And then kind of check back up on those like halfway through the year.
Yeah.
So the idea of journaling,
it's nice.
It sounds good. I don't know if it's a practice I want to put into my life yet.
Yeah.
But I do know that from a business standpoint, from like real estate, it's not so much of a journal as more of I'm like logging the things that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And
just writing it down.
Yeah. I'm just like, hey, I've called these people. And so at the end of on a Friday, I can look and say, what did I actually do this week?
Yeah.
Did I like do the practices that I've said I wanted to do, like make 100 dials and, set a meeting and have three lunches with, various people. Like, are those the things, those behaviors that I said, now that I want to create for 2020, am I actually doing that?
Yeah.
So I think it can be a good thing.
Yeah.
My wife loves to journal. I know it's beneficial for me sometimes whenever I want to like go back and reflect. I do journal a little bit, but I'm not an everyday guy.
Yeah, I don't journal either. It's one of those things, again, I would love to do it.
Yeah.
But it's just like putting it into practice. It's like, one more thing to do.
Idea sounds nice, though.
It's very nice in theory, right? An idea. I know a lot of people get a lot of benefit out of it, so I'm always interested in like, who does it and who doesn't.
Yeah, I think I think everyone's got to figure out their own thing, like whatever works for them.
Yeah.
And there's so many things out there that you could do, right?
Oh, infinite.
There's so many practices that you could put into place. Somebody would tell you like meditation.
Yeah.
Like the apps. Do you know the app Headspace?
Yep.
Okay, so like meditating is also great, and it could take as little as 3-5 minutes.
Yeah, it doesn't take much.
And that's something that I would like to do more of too, because when I was doing that, I was like, man, this is like good. It's peaceful. It helps you bring you back to like just being present.
Just being present. Yeah, I get that with jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like a moving meditation.
Yeah, that
where a
makes
guy's
sense.
trying to choke you, and you have to be present.
I've actually been interested in doing some jiu-jitsu. I never was into like fighting or wrestling or anything, but jiu-jitsu sounds like a lot of fun.
Dude, it's one of those things that when you start, it's tough. It's just, you got to really humble yourself. You're going to fucking get tapped out a lot. But, you just keep showing up and you just keep doing it. Eventually you get better and you tap out less.
Yeah.
And a lot of people when they're starting, there's so many different things to do and learn that you want to learn it all. It's like drinking from a fire hose. But it's like, dude, just keep showing up. Keep doing it, and you'll get better, and everything just develops. It's a process.
Do you think it needs to be like a everyday thing, or could you go like 2 times a week and just?
I would say if it's something like you're just kind of like working in the mix, I would say 2 or 3 times ideally.
Okay.
Just would be like maybe like a couple technique classes, and then if you can work it in like one day of like just live rolling, if you can get it in, because most gyms usually have they'll do a technique and then there might be some live rolling at the end of the class, or maybe something worked into it.
Right.
But then usually there's like an open mat day where you can go in and that's all you do. It's just roll. So it's good to get the mix of both, so that way you can start applying some of the things you're learning, and then also kind of figure out what does and doesn't work.
Gotcha.
Some people do like one or the other, and it's good to kind of have a good mix of the both. But I promise you, once you start, you're gonna be like, I want to do this all the time.
Really,
dude? Okay. It's so addictive. It's human chess. It's such a puzzle, and it's so complex, and there's just so many just different little things.
I think that's what interests me the most, is like the strategy behind it.
Dude, it's crazy. Like for me, I've been doing this for a decade now, like doing jiu-jitsu, and you kind of get to a point to where once you kind of learn those angles and those leverage points and different things, you find new ways to challenge yourself. But I roll with someone who's like 300 pounds, and it's not that big of a deal. You know what I mean? So it's a cool skill to have, to figure out those different ways to kind of control the human body and make them unconscious.
It doesn't hurt to have in just everyday life either. So.
It definitely helps. For me, dude, it's just about having the peace of mind and the confidence that no matter what happens, you're okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of mental training. I found most of life is just mental. Yeah. It's all about training the mind.
Don't disagree with that.
Yeah, man. You can go real far with a strong mindset.
Right.
Now, I wanted to ask you something. What your thoughts were? I don't know if you recently saw that the MLB just they just approved cannabis.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on that?
Well, so Major League Baseball, when you were on the big league roster, and the 40-man roster. So you've got the 25-man active roster when you're in the big leagues.
Okay.
And you've got the extended roster at 40-man players.
So is the 40-man also in the big leagues, or do those?
The other 15 or so could be in AAA. So when I was on the 40-man when I was in AA a couple times, and so what that means is they could just call me up. They could call me up a lot easier and send me down, just within a day.
Yeah. Which
they did several times. So when you're on that roster, technically marijuana was illegal, but they didn't test for it.
Okay.
They didn't test for really any drugs of abuse that much. You could test positive. They did test for Adderall because that was viewed as a performance enhancer.
Oh, yeah, that tunes you in.
And so, and then also, meth, I think, could test as a performance enhancer.
Well, Adderall is meth, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that was the other thing. Meth, couldn't do. I guess you couldn't do meth as a baseball player. Now, when you're in the minor leagues and you're just on the minor league roster, you got tested for drugs of abuse a lot more.
Oh, really?
And so, all of those drugs were illegal, and marijuana was on that list.
Yeah.
So they just went through, because of the whole deal with Tyler Skaggs, who was a teammate of mine in 2014, when he got, he passed away this year with it was alcohol, oxy, and a fentanyl overdose, I guess.
Fucking fentanyl, dude.
And so I think because of that, they wanted to implement some just the opioid testing.
Yeah.
And obviously whenever you start entering testing, the union gets involved. And so I think they said that they would do heavier drugs of abuse, I guess cocaine, or which I think they may have been tested for that anyways, but cocaine and some like heavy.
It's gonna be tough to catch that one.
Well, yeah, I think it's
like 24 hours. Yeah.
So cocaine and like some of the hard painkillers and narcotics they're testing now.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, I guess they help the minor leaguers by not testing them for marijuana. So all of that to say, I think it's beneficial.
Yeah.
I think it's good for the rest of the baseball players. I had a bunch of guys that I played with that were like, you should make a comeback. And I'm like, not that I'm like, I think it's just, I'm not like a huge, I don't think weed's like awesome or marijuana is like the best thing, but I think to me it's very similar to alcohol. Like if you want to use it in moderation, then it can be an okay substance. I know from my time playing in the big leagues, marijuana was a lot more prevalent than actually drinking was.
For sure.
And because
you don't feel like shit the next day.
Yeah, and that was the biggest thing. You kind of look at like the drugs over time in baseball. Like in the 80s, they did a bunch of cocaine. In the 90s, they did a bunch of steroids. Well, late 90s and early 2000s, they did a bunch of steroids.
Yeah.
And in this last little bit, it's always been about a lot more people smoke weed or take some edibles or do whatever. And that was more, like you said, they could go after the game and do whatever they wanted to do, and then they're not out at the bars all night. They don't wake up the next morning or hungover, because they couldn't do that because now they couldn't take Adderall or amphetamines anymore to get the up again.
Yeah.
And so, when you wake up after smoking, it's not as bad, or eating some weed, they don't wake up and feel like shit anymore.
Right.
So, I don't think I think we probably should legalize marijuana all over the place.
Yeah.
And I think it would help economically speaking too.
Oh, for sure. Without a doubt.
There's plenty of economists that have said you should legalize all drugs. You just tax them.
Yeah.
And turn it into more of like a sin tax, which again, I'm okay with as well.
Well, like legalize, or you could also decriminalize, or you could treat substance abuse as like a health issue as opposed to like a criminal issue.
What it should be,
right?
Yeah, it should be a health issue.
I think from my perspective with sports and athletics, we have these high level athletes who have very high demands, especially in baseball. How many games do you guys?
You play 162.
It's fucking ridiculous.
Something
crazy amount of nights on the road and training, and it's just hard on the body, and just to have an option for pain relief, or to decompress, or anxiety, or whatever, however you're treating yourself, just to have that option. All of those things, right? Opposed to taking a narcotic, which is going to break down your liver and break down your kidneys, and there's a huge substance abuse and like percentage of like addiction.
Yeah, it's way more addictive.
It was pretty exciting, for at least for me, in my perspective, to kind of see that change, at least just for options.
Yeah. So my biggest thing was, from when I played, there was not a time when I was playing that I didn't constantly take an anti-inflammatory.
Like ibuprofen probably all the time.
Well, and it was more even like heavily. It was like
Tylenol 3 or something.
Yeah, what did we get? I can't even think. Voltaren, which that like screws up your stomach.
Dude, so hard on you.
And I mean, even like naproxen, which is basically a Aleve, but it's like for a Aleve that you could take.
Yeah.
And those things are like, I would play with them. I would pitch with them all the time because I would need them for some of the anti-inflammatory components.
Yeah.
And I think having all the guys now being able to, I think it's just more on a level playing field now, right? Like that was the biggest thing that I didn't like from the big leagues to the minor leagues, was that there were some things that was completely different, and the money and I get that, that's fine.
Yeah.
But like in AAA, when I was playing, we didn't use the same ball
that
the big leaguers used. And so you'd go up, and I was a guy that like, I literally, in my first year playing baseball in 2013, I got called up to the big leagues, was up for 2.5 weeks, sent back down. Right as I stepped off the plane, I got a phone call. They're like, hey, you're coming back. So I flew back, stayed for 2 days, got sent back down.
Okay.
Stayed for 4 days in the minor leagues, got called back up. Like, was up for like 4 days and got sent back down.
Holy hell.
So you're all over.
Hot potato.
And it was using like a different ball. So when I was going in AA, I was using a different ball that I would use in the big leagues.
What's different? What's the difference?
They treat the leather differently.
Oh,
so the leather feels different.
Just feels
the
different.
big league balls are a lot more slick, and the minor league balls were a lot easier to grip.
But they're standard size.
Same size, same weight. It's more the feel on your fingertips, which is different.
Yeah, that makes a big difference.
And so I always thought that was like a big thing. I was like, that's so stupid. Last year, they switched to the regular balls. They switched, so AAA and the big leaguers are using the same balls, which I'm like.
Makes sense.
Yeah, why wouldn't you use the same baseball?
Yeah.
So some of those things should stay the same. And I think allowing minor leaguers to treat their bodies however they want to treat it, you know. And you're also operating in states that it has been legalized. I know it's not legalized federally, but like
we're getting there.
California, Washington, I think even Boston legalized it.
Did
they? And then Colorado.
Dude, it's legal in most of the states in one form or another, whether it's decriminalized or for medical use or for recreation. Obviously, less recreational states, but it's legal in one form or another at most places.
Yeah, the South is interesting. Down in the South, specifically the Southeast, the Bible Belt here, a lot of people view it as a they view it as like a gateway drug.
It's the devil's lettuce.
Exactly. And so they view it as a gateway drug. And,
sugar's the real gateway drug.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah. And you're probably not wrong. And I think there's tons of research out there. And there's probably research on both ends that someone could say. And I think from a gateway drug standpoint, it's probably more anecdotal evidence than anything rather than it being research back that it could lead you down the wrong path. But I think, again, everything in moderation, like that's life in general, right?
Yeah.
Like you could go have sugar and you can go have sweets as long as you don't only eat sweets.
Yeah, that's where people fuck up, dude. You just go overboard. Too much of anything is not good for you.
We're all addicts, right? I mean, like we can all be addicted to stuff.
To something,
and I was addicted to baseball.
Yeah.
And there's things that you could be addicted to that can be really good.
Yeah.
But you just got to know your type of personality.
Yeah. Hey, what was that transition like from, dude, you went from like an all-star, in high school to killing it in college, team captain, 2 World Series, and then like you went to the minor leagues.
Dude.
Like, not to like be like, oh, well, you only went to them. Obviously, like that's super cool, but like to your point, like they treated you different.
Yeah. The biggest thing, so in 2011 when I was getting, I was getting some calls from scouts and they're like, hey, do you want to play professionally? And I always told them yes, and I did. Like I did want to play professionally, but I still had another year of college that I could go to.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I wasn't necessarily sold like, yeah, I'm ready to play professionally yet. And one of the reasons was that there was a guy that had went and played. He played like parts of 5 years in the big league, so he probably made, decent amount of money.
Decent.
And he's like, man, this is the hardest year of my life. He was back in school. He was 31. He was like, I've got this year to get my degree. He's like, my wife, we're having a baby. My wife's working a job, but like my bank account's constantly going down. He's like, because I'm not working.
Yeah.
And that was a huge impact on me because I was like, man, I kind of want to just get my degree and figure it out from there.
Yeah.
So I got drafted, told them no thanks, and then went back to college for my senior year and got my degree, and then got drafted again and went into pro ball. And so at South Carolina, every Friday night that I pitched, I think we had like 8,000 fans. We almost had a sellout pretty much every time.
That's legit as shit.
And I'll never forget my first start was I got assigned to Orem, Utah, which is like BYU, Provo area.
Okay.
So you're like south of Salt Lake City. I was like, man, going to pro ball. Like I was a single guy at the time. And my first start was on a Sunday in Orem. And I was going through my warm up, not really paying attention to much, because I don't really notice a ton of stuff going on outside of when I was going through my prep work. But I would always kind of step on the mound, take a big deep breath, say a prayer, and look up and get ready to go. And after I did that, I looked up and there was 50 people in the stands. And I was like, what the hell?
Why are we here right now?
Yeah, I was like, what is going on? And I was like, man, welcome to pro ball.
Yeah.
And
Nobody cares.
It was tough. Like my first 2 months of pro ball, I hated because I was in my senior year. Was just coming off my senior season. I'd already thrown like 140 innings or something, and so they wanted to limit me on the amount of innings I would throw. So I was only allowed to throw, like I was on a starter's routine, so throwing every 5 days, but I was only allowed to throw 2 innings.
Oh,
so it's like
that's brutal.
Yeah,
It
sucked.
I mean, what's that like? If you did every 5 days, then that's like 6 times in a month, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, yeah. You're like 6 times in a month, so I was getting. Yeah, they were trying to limit me to like not throw more than 20 innings for those 2 months that I was out there.
Yeah.
And they succeeded, and it sucked though, and I hated it. I was like, man, this sucks. I went back to Columbia for the off season, and I was glad to get a break, and it was my first real break from baseball. But the minor leagues was like, that was my intro, and I was like, what the hell am I doing?
A little bit of a culture shock.
But once I took that break, I was ready to go. I kind of knew what I was getting into, and really you start to realize that you're playing like with a bunch of buddies, and you're playing for each other and for yourself.
Yeah.
So the hardest thing to me about the minor leagues was that it was so much more. You can make it so much more about you.
Yeah.
Where in college, like, we all just wanted to win.
Yeah.
And in the minor leagues, everybody's like, I got my 3 hits tonight. Or you could be like, I got my 7 innings. Because at the end of the day,
you're trying to get called up.
If you won, you're like, we just won game 80 of, 140 games that we have that season.
Right.
Like, we're going to do it again tomorrow if we lose.
Yeah.
Now, you don't want to keep getting your ass kicked.
Right.
Because then that's no fun. But it just became, you can make it a lot more about yourself. And I think if I could go back and do it again, I would try to be a lot more team oriented. But still, it's pretty hard to do that in professional sports.
Yeah, I mean,
at least at the minor league level.
Well, yeah, well, just sports in general, you gotta be selfish.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, you gotta take care of yourself because you're trying to perform well, you're trying to get paid, you're trying to get called up if you're in the, you know what I mean.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and so that was like the biggest difference about minor leagues, and I loved it. I played with tons of great, like, there's so many good teammates I played with, but you also play with some guys that you're like, I'd be okay if I never saw them again.
Yeah,
and so. There was some teams that I had an absolute blast with, and when I was with the Cubs in 2018 in AAA, like, man, we had so many good guys on that team, and it was so much fun. And then I ended up getting traded, and I wish I would have stayed because that team was so much fun.
Yeah,
but it's those, when you have teams like that, that's when you're like, man, this is why I'm playing. This is a lot of fun.
Makes it worth it.
Yeah,
dude. Well, hey, man, it's been a little over an hour. Thank you so much for taking this time.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
I'll leave the floor to you, though. If you want to tell the folks how they can check you out, or if there's anything that you wanted to leave them with, or.
Yeah, well, I would say you can reach me at Twitter at mtroth29 or Instagram. I'll be on there a lot more. When I was playing, when I got called to the big leagues in 2013, people would just roast me on Twitter. Like, if you pitched well, pitched bad, they're like, who the fuck is this guy?
It's gotta be hard.
And I'm like, man, this shit sucks.
I'm a human being,
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to be on here anymore. Because I used to be on Twitter a lot. And so as I started, when I got in pro ball, I was like, man, I kind of like want to get away. And I became a lot more private on that space.
Yeah.
But one of the things in 2020 is I want to get more involved with it and just share more of what I'm up to. And not necessarily even like sell people anything, just be more open. And, if people are going to roast me, I'm in a lot better spot now to be like, bring it on.
Yeah,
roast
kind of laugh that one off a little bit now.
So yeah, Twitter and Instagram at mtroth29.
Right on.
And just don't be afraid to reach out, and enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Oh, dude, it was a pleasure, dude. So thanks again. All right, everybody, until next time.